The morning of June 8th, 1783, began like any other in the small Icelandic parish of Cedar. The world was quiet, the land bathed in the gentle gold of dawn, and the people rose to greet another day, unaware of what fate had in store. Sheep dotted the greening hillsides, and farmers tended their land with practiced hands, repeating the rituals of generations before them. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and the North Atlantic, mingling with the faint aroma of wildflowers and sea salt. Life was hard but predictable, governed by the sun and seasons, each day a careful balance of hope and endurance. The people of Cedar knew their world well, their routines shaped by the land and weather, unaware of the impending betrayal beneath their feet. Subtle signs had been there, gentle tremors rattling cups, springs running dry, and a strange haze that lingered over the valley. But these were dismissed as minor curiosities in a land of constant change, where the earth often grumbled and the weather shifted without warning. No one imagined the colossal volume of molten rock preparing to surface, hidden deep below, building pressure with every passing hour. The sky was a brilliant blue. Birds sang and children played, laughter echoing across the fields as if nothing could ever disturb this peace. It was a moment of peace on the brink of an abyss, a fragile calm before the storm that would change everything. The silence was about to be shattered by a roar heard across the world, a sound that would echo through history. A long, terrible darkness was about to fall, not just on Iceland, but on all of Europe, as the skies would soon be choked with ash and fear. The giant was about to awaken, and nothing would ever be the same again. Suddenly, the ground ripped open near the Laki volcano, as if the earth itself was being torn apart by some unimaginable force. The land shuddered and split, sending tremors across the countryside and striking terror into the hearts of those who witnessed it. A fissure stretched for miles, a gaping wound in the landscape that seemed to have no end. The earth yawned open, swallowing everything in its path and leaving behind a scar that would forever mark the land. From this wound, fountains of liquid fire erupted into the sky, painting the night with a hellish glow. The air shimmered with heat as molten rock burst forth in a relentless fiery display. Colossal jets of lava shot hundreds of feet into the air with a deafening roar, each explosion echoing for miles. The ground trembled beneath the force of the eruption, and the sky was lit by the unending firestorm. The sky turned into a churning column of black ash and toxic gas, blotting out the sun and plunging the world below into darkness. The air became thick and suffocating, filled with the stench of sulfur and burning earth. Day became a terrifying twilight hell, where the sun was just a faint memory behind the swirling clouds of ash. Shadows stretched across the land, and fear gripped every living thing. The Laki craters spewed immense quantities of sulfur dioxide and fluorine, releasing invisible poisons that drifted on the wind. These gases would soon prove deadly, not just for Iceland, but for lands far beyond. A poisonous cloud began to choke the life out of the land, settling over fields and villages, suffocating crops, animals, and people alike. The very air became a silent killer. Rivers of lava, glowing with infernal light, poured from the fissure, carving new paths through the countryside. The relentless flow consumed everything in its way, unstoppable and merciless. The lava consumed everything, turning pastures into fields of stone. Once fertile land was now a barren wasteland, transformed forever by the fury of the volcano. The eruption would continue for 8 long months, an unending nightmare for the people of Iceland. Each day brought new destruction, and hope faded with every passing week. It released over 120 million tons of sulfur dioxide, sending vast plumes of gas high into the atmosphere. The effects of this disaster would soon be felt across the globe. The immediate devastation in Iceland was absolute. Entire villages vanished beneath ash and lava, and the landscape was changed beyond recognition. A deadly cloud was about to begin its journey toward Europe, carrying with it the silent threat of death and disaster on a continental scale. The toxic cloud drifted from Iceland, invading Europe, carried by the wind across hundreds of miles. It crept silently, unseen at first, but soon its presence was impossible to ignore. In late June 1783, people gazed upward in confusion and fear, seeing the sun transformed into a dull, blood-red disk, its light weak and sickly. It cast the world in an eerie, dim glow, even at midday, as if night had arrived early and refused to leave. A strange, dry fog descended, acrid and sulphuric, stinging the eyes and burning the throat. This fog shrouded the landscape, limiting visibility and creating a claustrophobic world where familiar streets became unrecognizable. The fog brought acid rain, burning leaves and damaging crops, threatening the year's harvest and the food supply for entire communities. People reported respiratory distress from the air, coughing and gasping as the poison seeped into their lungs. The natural world was thrown into chaos, with animals fleeing or collapsing, unable to escape the invisible threat. Insects died in massive numbers, and birds fell silent, their songs vanishing from the air. The summer of 1783 was one of fear and decay, a season when hope seemed to wither alongside the plants. No one in Europe knew the cause, and rumours spread as confusion deepened. They could not see the fiery fountains in distant Iceland, hidden beyond the horizon, spewing poison into the sky. The sky had turned against them, and a poisonous fog had stolen their summer, leaving only dread and uncertainty. The great forgetting had begun. No one made the connection to Iceland, and daily life continued in the shadow of disaster. The world felt smaller, darker, and more menacing, as if the sun itself had turned its back on humanity. The dry fog changed daily life across Europe. In London, the haze was so thick the sun was often invisible. The air was thick with a sulphuric stench, causing respiratory problems. The economic impact was immediate as trade slowed. Benjamin Franklin speculated a volcano had erupted, blocking the sun's rays. The psychological toll was immense, creating a pervasive sense of dread. Fear turned into religious panic. A sun turned to blood, and a sky filled with smoke were images from Revelation. Priests declared the fog a sign of God's wrath. Congregations swelled as people prayed for deliverance. Superstition ran rampant with whispers of demons in the fog. The atmosphere of fear was palpable across the continent. The Laki eruption had become a ghost story told in real time. The atmospheric horror gave way to starvation. Acid rain and lack of sunlight devastated agriculture. Hayfields withered and grain crops were stunted. The food supply for winter was compromised. In Iceland, fluorine in volcanic ash caused fluorosis in livestock. Over half of Iceland's livestock perished, leading to famine. Across Europe, the loss of fodder led to a mass slaughter of livestock. The winter that followed was severe, with temperatures plummeting. Rivers and harbours froze solid, creating a perfect storm of misery. The poor faced a brutal choice: freeze or starve. The death toll from famine and cold soared. The forgotten catastrophe was written in mortality statistics. The cycle of planting and harvest was broken. The suffering was immense. The suffering from the Laki eruption had long-lasting consequences. In France, poor harvests pushed the fragile system to its breaking point. The price of bread skyrocketed, leading to riots. The cry for bread became a cry for justice. Historians consider the Laki eruption a factor in the French Revolution. The climate crisis acted as an accelerant for revolt. The government was powerless to alleviate the food crisis. The environmental catastrophe morphed into a political one. The chain of events shows how interconnected our world is. The hungry citizens who stormed the Bastille lived in a world the Laki eruption had made. The Laki eruption faded from memory. The dry fog dissipated and the sun returned to normal. The event became a footnote, disconnected from the suffering it caused. It became a forgotten catastrophe, its true scale lost in time. This forgetting is a cautionary tale of missed connections. The Laki eruption was a stress test for the pre-industrial world. Visiting the Laki craters today reveals a serene beauty. Beneath the moss lies evidence of a great disaster. The story of Laki is an echo in the ash, a warning that resonates today. It reminds us of the planet's capacity for sudden, world-altering violence.